Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Daily Move. Thank you so much for listening again. I know I talked about this in the last episode, but it's definitely September. It got so cold this week, I had to break out the big duvet. I was watching this video on TikTok and it was kind of this like rainy scene, somebody's rainy window. It looked really cozy and dark and a little bit witchy. And somebody said in the comments that it's Hoa Hoa season. And I read it and I thought, oh, it's some like Pacific Island cultural tradition, cultural custom. Let's take a closer look at what this is and learn about it. So I clicked on the blue comment and it's nothing to do with that. Hoa Hoa season refers to a song called Eyes on Fire by Blue Foundation. And if you've watched Twilight, you'll know what I'm talking about. You just have to hear the first few lyrics of that song and you instantly get taken back to Twilight. It was like I was 15 again, in my room, hiding away from everyone, reading all of the Twilight books. But anyway, yes, I concur. It's Hoa Hoa season, definitely. I've got a mug of tea just to prove that I'm being all cozy. But yeah, I'm still getting that new season, new school year kind of vibe. And I think it's because a lot of new things are happening for me professionally, this podcast being one of them. This is something that I've started completely on my own. So I've created this opportunity for myself because I love to try my hand at new things. I wanted to move forward with the daily move, and I thought the podcast would be the best way to go about it. So if you want to do something similar, I'm not necessarily talking about creating a podcast, but doing something new in your life, creating an opportunity for yourself. If you're feeling a little bit stagnant, listen after the well-being news for the subject of this week's episode, which is how to create opportunity for yourself. But first, as I said, we've got the news. I've just had an email that Davina McCall's award-winning book, released last year, which is called Menopausing, has been actually re-released with new information. So we're finally getting the research into menopause that we women really deserve. And the new edition of the book explains the science, debunks damaging myths that have held us back in the past, and smashes all of the taboos surrounding perimenopause and menopause. And this new edition will be published on 10th of October 2024. Honestly, I think every woman should read this book, whether you're approaching menopause, whether you are a young woman who, doesn't quite know what the future looks like for women with menopause. It's great for giving you the information that you need to make good decisions about your health as an older woman. Or, there are a percentage of women who go through early menopause. And while it might be rare, there's no harm in arming yourself with the information just in case you or someone you know goes through that. But in other news, the Scottish government has released new guidelines to say that blazers should not be compulsory for students. So this is in order to improve their well-being and also reduce the cost to families. The guidance was drawn up after a consultation with schools, parents and local councils, and its aim is to prioritise student comfort, freedom and happiness. So fancy that, a government that's actually listening to its people. I think blazers have always been an unnecessary cost for payments. Plus, the blazers at my school were made with a fabric that was too hot in summer and nowhere near warm enough in winter. So they were always either taken off or covered up with a jacket. So there wasn't really much point in wearing one. Anyway, finally, in the New York Times email newsletter, Jancy Dunn has written a great piece titled End of Day Meltdowns Are Not Just for Kids. And it's about why you might come home from work and feel really irritable. You might even take it out on members of your household by nitpicking or trying to start arguments. And it's theorised that it's because we're holding in our emotions all day. We're taking on stress during the day. And it all comes out like a big meltdown when we come home. I'll leave a link to that piece in the show notes so that you can have a read if you want to. So moving on to this week's podcast subject, which is how to create opportunity for yourself. Opportunity comes in many forms, whether it's in your love life, in friendship, in your professional life, which is what I assume a lot of people who are listening to this will want to get kind of tips and advice and inspiration on. You can get opportunities in travel and also experiences like hobbies or skill development or things like that. Sometimes opportunities come your way, they just fall into your lap, and sometimes you have to find them yourself. And I'm going to be talking about both. But one thing that I will say is with opportunities, it kind of 99% of the time requires you to get out of your comfort zone. It's not easy creating opportunities for yourself. It requires a lot of self-reflection, self-development. But one of my favourite sayings, and it's one that I live by, is that nothing worth having ever came easy. And that doesn't mean you have to go through loads and loads of hardship before you can finally be rewarded, but you do have to put in a certain amount of work. And sometimes you have to get comfortable with discomfort. So throughout this episode, I'm going to get help from some famous quotes. And my first one is, "Today, knowledge has power. It controls access to opportunity and advancement." And that's by Peter Drucker. Drucker was one of the best known and most widely influential thinkers and writers on the subject of management theory and practice in the world of business. So knowledge is really, really important in helping to create opportunity for yourself. And there's two kind of chunks or segments of knowledge that are really recommended in this area. The first one is knowing yourself. So knowing who you are, what you stand for, what you're capable of, like your skills, and also what you want, what your goals are, what your aims are. Because if you don't know what you really want, how are you going to create the opportunity to achieve it? So that second thing kind of tags on to the end of that, and that's knowing what you want to obtain, but knowing it fully. Becoming an expert. So if you want to travel, know where you're going, know the culture, understand the language. If you're an artist and you want your art in galleries, know the galleries in your area and what kind of art they display. Find out who you need to speak to, whether it's the owner of the gallery. Find out the costs associated with putting your artwork in the gallery. Do they take a commission? They teach research in schools and university for a reason. Gaining knowledge is the first step in creating opportunity because it arms you with the information you need to make important decisions about achieving what you want. You cannot make decisions without knowing what you're deciding. So practically, my advice would be do some soul searching, do some journaling, really get into the nitty-gritty of who you are and what you want and try and define that. But also get on Google, get on the internet, talk to people as well. If you know what you want, try and understand it. Try and get as much information from your resources as possible. Ask ChatGPT, put it to good use. But definitely, make the most of your resources. So my second quote is, "Opportunities and success are not something you go after necessarily, but something you attract by becoming an attractive person." And that was said by Jim Rohn, who is an award-winning motivational speaker. And you can find his speeches on Spotify and other podcasting platforms if you want to have a listen. When he's talking about an attractive person, that doesn't mean physically attractive. Of course, we have things like pretty privilege, which could be a whole other episode, to be honest. And I'm not saying that pretty privilege doesn't exist, it definitely does. But there are other ways to make yourself attractive to opportunity, not necessarily to other people, to opportunity. What this is essentially manifestation. So what is manifestation? If you don't know, if you haven't read The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, here is a quick definition. So it's the practice of thinking aspirational thoughts with the purpose of making them real. So basically taking what's inside your head, what you want, the lifestyle, the person you want to be, and making that real, making that your existence. And what you want to do is make opportunity attracted to you. So you firstly do that by obtaining knowledge about yourself and what you want, like we've already talked about. But secondly, by self-development. So you want to be developing your skills, your mental and physical well-being, your relationships. All of these make you more attractive to opportunity. So why is opportunity attracted to these factors? It's because opportunity is often linked to other people. If you're a skilled person, privileges aside, you should be more likely to get the work that you're skilled to do because someone who's giving that work will see you as more employable. If you've really worked on and looked after your mental well-being, you're more likely to find a great quality partner because you're more likely to be happy in yourself and you're not willing to compromise on your peace for someone who doesn't tick all your boxes. If you're working on your relationships, people are more likely to think of you when opportunities come about because they see you as someone of value, someone who they care about, who they want to see do well, and they'll hopefully present opportunities to you. And another thing just off the back of that, tell people about your wants and your goals and your aims, your dreams. Part of manifesting is putting it out into the universe. I have a dear friend called Michaela who's a fantastic photographer, and she's always appearing on my Instagram feed. You know, she's constantly putting out stories and posts and talking about her business, what she does, what she's passionate about. Of course, there are skills to learn in marketing and branding and that sort of thing. But generally, if you're the kind of person who talks about one thing, who talks about your passions, people will start attributing that thing to you. And they'll remember you when an opportunity arises that they'll hopefully then present to you in future. Another reason why you'd want to tell people about your dreams and your goals is accountability. I know we've all lied to ourselves, we've all cheated ourselves by saying maybe, oh, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, I'm going to get out, I'm going to look after my fitness, I'm going to go to the gym. And if you say it to yourself, unless you're really disciplined and you have self-accountability, it's very easy to cheat yourself out of that commitment, whereas it's harder to disappoint someone else. So if you said to your best friend or your partner or your social media following, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, and you don't end up going, then you tend to take that a lot harder than if you'd only just let yourself down. So although there are things that you might not want to tell people about, like a business idea that you don't want someone copying, definitely try to have accountability, tell people about your passions, because if people don't know, then they can't help you. So my next quote is, I believe success is preparation because opportunity is going to knock on your door sooner or later, but are you prepared to answer that? And this is from Omar Epps, who is an actor. You may know him from The Deliverance if you watched it on Netflix. Personally, I love scary films at the moment. I don't know what happened, but I just hit 30 and then I just didn't become scared. I became enthralled by scary films. So I love watching them, but I watched the trailer for The Deliverance and that actually looked too scary for me to watch. So if you have watched it, and you know me personally, let me know whether I should brave it and, you know, hide behind a pillow while I'm watching it, or whether I should just leave it. But anyway, what Omar Epps means by that is prepare for the day that opportunity knocks on your door. If it's next week, you don't want to be scrambling around trying to prepare overnight because you haven't got your stuff together. You want to always be working on yourself and what you want every day. Just get that 1% closer towards what you want. And manifestation can help with that, because if you act like you already have it, then you'll become the person that has it. Who is that person that has what you want? If you're wanting to start a business, do you have a business plan? Do you have knowledge of your industry? Do you have a logo? Do you have capital? The person who has a business has all of these things. And by working on what you want every day, you're that little bit closer to having them. When the opportunity comes, you may not be 100% ready, but just make sure you're doing what you can in order to be as ready as possible. Because say if a friend came to you a month from now and they said, hey, I know someone who's come into a lot of money and they're looking for investment opportunities. I know you said a few months ago that you're wanting to start a business. Do you have a business plan? And you're like, oh, I haven't even got a name for my business yet. Like, I haven't thought about it. I haven't put in that 1% every day, that small bit of effort that I needed in order to meet this opportunity. That opportunity will pass you by, and you might have to work even harder to get another opportunity. Another opportunity will come. But do you want it now or do you want it later? What are you prepared to do in order to achieve it? 1% is really not a lot. If you can sacrifice half an hour that you would have spent scrolling through TikTok or watching YouTube videos, not necessarily learning about your industry or passion or who you want to be, but half an hour of your free time that you would have spent doing something that might not be as constructive, it not only brings you closer towards what you want, but it also puts you in the mindset for receiving opportunity. So that's my practical tip for that quote. Half an hour every day. So my next one is from someone that you might have heard of, John F. Kennedy, President of the United States. And he famously said in a campaign speech, when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. Now, I'm always a bit skeptical of translations, so I did actually look this up, and it's commonly wrongly translated, and it continues to be because this speech is so famous. But one character does translate to danger in English, but the other one translates to a crucial point when something begins to change. So I guess you could take that to mean opportunity, but it's not what it literally means. But what I take from this is that it means you should recognize that your setbacks can pave the way for change. It's easy to feel deflated after something goes wrong, after you've made a bad decision, something happens that's out of your control. But, and this is another important saying, this too shall pass. And if you open yourself up to opportunity, then something better may come out of it. Like if you've just got out of a breakup and, you know, your heart's broken, it's just the worst thing at the moment. That paves the way for you to find someone even better. It's creating an opportunity. If you have a health scare or an accident, it's a trigger to do everything that you can for your physical health. You're creating an opportunity for your health there. The story of Karen Dark is always really inspiring to me. She was paralysed from the chest down following an accident when she was just the age of 21 while she was sea cliff climbing. And she went on a few years later to become a Paralympic cyclist, and she won gold at the 2016 Rio Olympics. So that's absolutely exceptional. I know we can't all be Karen Dark, but use that as your inspiration. Another thing that people regularly go through in today's society is losing their job, and it's absolutely horrible. You have this sense of panic of, am I going to be able to pay my bills? Am I going to be able to feed myself and my family? But that could be your trigger to find opportunity to go into a better position or even start your own business. When I was 20 years old, my parents moved country after I had just finished uni, and I had to move into my own apartment that I could barely afford. I actually had to get a guarantor. And then literally the month of moving in, I was made redundant from my first job out of uni. I didn't have parents to fall back on. So I really had to scramble to get work, and I did get another full-time job, which I really hated, if I was honest. But on the side, I was doing some freelance writing, and I was going into my full-time job thinking, God, I'm so depressed. I can't do this every day. I had this kind of pit in my stomach because it just wasn't the job that I wanted to do. It just sapped all of my there was no opportunity for creativity, and I'm a creative person. So I put everything I had into my freelance writing, and then I left my job, and I've been doing freelance writing for nearly 10 years now, which is a bit scary. There are so many stories where people have created opportunity out of a setback. So if you ever experience something like that, just remember that this too shall pass. So to wrap this up, some opportunities fall into your lap out of sheer luck, or some people are born into privilege. You know, if you've got rich parents, then you probably don't need to do much in terms of creating opportunity for yourself. But some people born into privilege really don't do a lot of good with it. So if you are privileged and you want to create opportunity with it, capitalize on your privilege. But also remember to give back if you can. You know, although I didn't have much when I started my career, I was privileged in other ways. So I'm determined to use that in order to help other people throughout the rest of my career and indeed my personal life as well. Now, some opportunities fall in your lap because you're sitting outside. And by that, I mean you've put yourself in a position to be ready to receive opportunity, and you've been lucky for it to align with where you're sitting. And where you're sitting is where you're at in life. Now you're ready to do something with it. And finally, some opportunities are made. You've gone out there, you've asked for help, you've made yourself available to people. You're prepared to do more hard work in order to get yourself further. Whatever route you take, it requires doing something to help yourself, to move yourself forward. So start now, because it might take a year for that opportunity to come, but you want to be ready for when it does. That was today's episode of The Daily Move. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, head over to our Instagram page, which is @thedailymove.co.uk, where there are daily well-being tips, news, inspiration, and more fun stuff. And I'll see you in the next episode.